You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920, The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. Number, as always, 609-919-9200. Chad Reuter does a fantastic job for NFL.com with all the mock drafts, and I was reading one of his mock drafts, and we cover a lot of the Temple guys in Dion Dawkins and Hassan Reddick, and everyone's thinking Hassan is going to go before Dion, and Hassan will be a first-round pick. Well, Chad has Hassan going in the first round at number 17, but he has a surprise. He has Dion Dawkins going 15 before Hassan to the Indianapolis Colts. I like Dion Dawkins a lot. He's a friend of the show. He's been very kind to us leading up to the draft, but I thought Dion was going to go early second round, but that's not what Chad Reuter is saying right now, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us from NFL.com. Chad, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm walking around Philadelphia right now. I'm getting ready for this weekend's activities.
Well, that sounds exciting. Have you ever been to Philadelphia before?
Oh, yeah. A couple times. It's been a little while, but I'm happy to be back.
All right, well, where do you get your cheesesteak? We'll start with the hard-hitting question. Where's your cheesesteak tonight?
Oh, God, I don't even know. I went Geno's, I think, but you know what? I'm not real picky. So, if somebody puts one in front of me, I'm just going to eat it.
And the company pays for it these days, right?
Yeah, well, it depends.
If you get a filet mignon cheesesteak, maybe not so much. But let's get to this right now. You have Dion Dawkins going 15 in your mock draft from April 21st. Give me the thought process on Dion at 15.
Well, this is one of those picks that, Dion is really, really a fantastic player. I think his ability, I saw him play. Well, obviously, you've seen him play tackle for a long time, and he's a very, very talented guy there. And I think you saw at the Senior Bowl when they moved him to guard, he kind of looked like a guy that would really excel at that position. And I think a team that would take him would get a versatile player and a really outstanding guy. And I think he's going to be looked at a little higher than some people think. I think, I put him at 15, kind of to put the balloon up a little bit there for people to understand. He could go there. He could go to 20. To Denver, and somewhere else in the first round as well, or he could slide into the second. It's such this draft is so difficult because from the 13th pick to the 50th pick, you can move the guys around pretty much as you want, and it's just really a matter of individual preferences by teams, which we're not going to guess all the time, but. You look at a guy like Ryan Kelly went to Indianapolis last year in the middle of the first round, and if you have Andrew Luck, you got to protect him, and they really haven't done a great job of that. So it wouldn't shock me if he went that high. Denver obviously has offensive line issues, and when you got a guy like Dion who can play multiple positions, I mean he's really, really excellent talent.
Yeah, he was telling me he was even trying to learn the center position to make himself even more versatile, but I think a team's going to use him as either a guard or a tackle. A lot of teams are vacillating between that. But with all that being said, you're exactly right. Just because you put him at 15 doesn't mean he's going there. We all know that. But what do you think the chances are, if you had to give me a number, that we hear his name on Thursday instead of Friday?
Thursday instead of Friday, I'd say it's a 50-50.
Okay.
I really
like
do.
That.
I think there's enough teams that have an offensive line need, and this draft is not very deep at tackle either. So you're looking at Denver, the Giants, Indianapolis looking for help right tackle, Baltimore, Atlanta. I mean, there's a bunch of places for him to fall. So I think it's a 50. And if he ends up going to Carolina in the second round or something like that, or Jacksonville, something like that, he's going to be a fantastic steal for them. So. It's really a coin flip at this point.
In a lot of these mock drafts, you hear Ramchick, you hear Bowles, and you also hear Cam Robinson before you hear the name Dion Dawkins. And I would argue that Dion is at equal level, if not even maybe better than some of those names. How do you view those other three offensive linemen that I just mentioned?
Well, I think Cam Robinson is going to be a fantastic player. He is not Joe Thomas in terms of his footwork, but he just gets after it, play after play. He's going to be a long-time right tackle in the league. And right tackle it's not a negative connotation anymore because you got guys like Khalil Mack coming off the weak side of the formation nowadays, and you cannot have a slow-footed guy. And I think Cam competes as well as anybody. I think he's as strong as anybody, and he moves in space a lot better than people give him credit for. So I think he's really, really an outstanding player. Ramczyk is still a work in progress, but he's just going to get stronger, and he's extremely athletic. And if you draw up, what a left tackle looks like, or you want a left tackle to look like in the NFL, he pretty much looks the part. And Garrett Bowles, I think, he's had a rough life. He's a little bit older than the typical prospect as well. And teams aren't quite sure how he's going to be able to handle more complex schemes. So I've had him projected to go in the second round for a little while. Maybe somebody takes a chance. Seattle, you could see them, taking a chance and just saying, look, he's super athletic. He really gets after it every play. A competitive player. Maybe they take a shot at him. But, again, he's a good player. He's just got some question marks that makes him go maybe not as high as people once thought.
Chad, with Hassan, and I was covering Temple, and I got to see Hassan when he was a cornerback, and they didn't know where to put him, and eventually he turned into a linebacker and then a defensive end. And you always knew, I was one of his biggest supporters. I always said, this kid's going to be good. But not even myself, even as I was being very clairvoyant there, could have predicted that this guy would have been a first-round draft pick, especially when going into the year people were saying 7th or 6th round. This rise of Hassan Reddick, what has it been like to cover it? And also, you have him going 17. What's the earliest you think he could possibly go on Thursday?
Well, you hear as high as top 10, and teams that maybe were looking for Reuben Foster in that range, maybe a Cincinnati or New Orleans, maybe if they really still want that inside linebacker, they choose him. He's an agile guy, and I think the issue really was, and this is a problem for a lot of prospects, a college team needs a guy to fill a particular role. But in the NFL, they don't necessarily want him to fill that role. So then you have to prove yourself. And he did that at the Senior Bowl this year, where he proved, yes, he can come off the edge and rush, but he's not the long, tall guy that most teams prefer at that outside pass rush position. So they, didn't give him really high grades. But then you put him off the line of scrimmage and see what he can do as a blitzer, what he can do in coverage. And, although he's not the biggest guy, he certainly plays the run very well. So once you saw that at the Senior Bowl, teams were bought in. And then he works out well at the Combine to, show that athleticism again. And, he's a good football player just by watching the tape. So once you put all that together, it's been fun. You really like to see guys, be able to step out. Some guys can't transition positions the way that Hassan did. And, when he did that, he made himself a lot of money.
Chad Reuter with us right now from NFL.com on the Zach Gelb Show. Conley, you had him going 10. I'm assuming that's going to change now with the latest allegations. Where does Conley go in this draft now?
Well, I think teams are doing a lot of digging. In fact, I just updated my 7-round mock a few minutes ago, actually. I think it was published. And I took him out of the draft altogether. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but trying to project him with this late information is very difficult.
Agreed.
If teams believe that he is innocent and there's nothing like this, then they take him in the 3rd round or the 4th round. If they just don't know and they don't want to take a chance, then he goes undrafted like La'el Collins did for Dallas. And somebody's going to get a pretty good player out of him. And I'm still a believer, believe it or not, in innocent until proven guilty.
That's not the public opinion, That's what it is.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, teams are going to be doing the investigating. They'll figure out what the real story is. And for now, I've dropped him just out of the draft, and hopefully it'll all work out. Hopefully, if he is innocent, everything will work out for him.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think I actually agree with you. I think he may go undrafted, or maybe he falls to the 3rd or 4th round, and the team just takes him because of the value, as this was supposed to be someone that would be a top 15 pick. But even though I do agree with you, you don't want to ruin a kid's character and him be innocent, but you just know the public works these days. Since we've talked a lot about character issues leading up to the draft, Mixon and Cook, where do they end up going in this draft?
I think Mixon is definitely a early 2nd round pick, and Cook, I've heard a lot in a lot of different directions. He'll go anywhere from 19 to 35. I mean, somebody's just got to be comfortable with him, he's really difficult to project because again, the off-field stuff is difficult to overlook. He's had some fumbling issues. On the other hand, when he has the ball in his hands, he's a special player. And so, there have been guys picked in the bottom of the first round with just as many off-field question marks as Dalvin Cook. So I think for now I'm keeping him in the first round, but if he falls into the middle of the second round, I won't be surprised either. Guys like Deshaun Jackson have fallen there, guys with similar kind of issues. So it's really hard to pinpoint that at this time.
The Eagles pick at 14. There's about 6 or 7 names that we keep on hearing, but with all those names, I keep on saying, are they even going to be there at 14? With the Birds at 14, who do you like falling to them tomorrow night?
Well, I guess for right now, I'm going to keep a receiver there, Corey Davis. Yes, they signed Alshon Jeffrey, but we all know that that's a short-term deal. We don't know what's going to happen with him. And when you got a guy like Carson Wentz, you give him guys to throw the ball. I'm a firm believer in that. I think Corey Davis is really great value. The only reason he'd even be there for him is because he hasn't been able to work out with a relatively minor injury. And I just think he's really going to be if he was totally healthy, he would definitely go top 10. I think he's a guy that they should look at. Now with Conley out of the mix, really at cornerback, if a Marlon Humphrey maybe falls into their laps there, maybe that's the direction they go, because obviously cornerback is a need as well. So I really think with the value there, Christian McCaffrey, again, if he doesn't end up as a top 10 pick, maybe they look at him. I certainly would, because he's an excellent football player, but I just don't expect him to be there. So right now I'm sticking with the receivers just because you're likely to get the number 1 or number 2 receiver, whereas other positions you're looking to get the number 3 guy or the number 4 guy or something, and it's not worth it. You just take the best player you can there.
The receiver I would love, and I'd be fine if it's Davis, but is there any chance that Mike Williams falls to 14 or no?
Sure.
Oh, really?
And I think because he is not as quick-footed as some of the other guys that are physically dominating as him, and I think it'll be a tough choice for teams in the 12. Like, for example, I believe in my revised mock draft, I have Mike Williams going to Cleveland at 12.
Okay.
But there's no reason to think that they couldn't like Corey Davis just as much, and those two guys could flip and be at 12 and 14. So yeah, I think there's a fair shot. For example, Laquan Treadwell last year fell all the way to Minnesota. And I think Mike Williams is a better player than Laquan Treadwell, but the same sort of questions are asked. He's a physically dominated guy, but is he going to be able to separate, et cetera. So yeah, I think there's a chance. And frankly, there's a chance at every pick for anything. And this is why I love covering this event, because we talk about it. There are some things that probably won't happen, but you know what? The fun part is we don't really know, and it's going to be just fun to watch it unfold.
You couldn't have put it any better, and that's coming from a guy that does mock drafts, so I'm kind of intrigued that you did give us that take because the speculation is so much fun, but that's part of the fun of it. Let me take care of the Giants. We touched a little bit on the offensive lineman. Maybe the tight end from Miami is at play there at 23. What do you get a feel on from people that you talk to what the Giants do at 23?
Yeah, I think you've hit it. Njoku would be a great pick for them. Or an offensive lineman. I mean, I know they've looked at Ramczyk. I think Cam Robinson will be gone by then, and there's not a lot of other choice. I mean, I think pretty much at this point it's Ramczyk or Njoku if those guys are available to them. If they're not, then maybe I don't see them going for a Bowles. That's another possibility. At the tackle. So offensively, Eric Flowers is just not a left tackle. He's just not. He never was. And so they really need to upgrade there in a big way. And so I think you really got to think hard about offensive tackle if you're the Giants. But I've projected Njoku there, a couple of mocks because maybe they can get a guy in the second round at tackle. But when you get a chance to get a guy like Njoku, despite the depth of the tight end position this year, I think you take him. I think you really have a chance of getting a clear difference maker at tight end, and Eli Manning would be very happy with that.
I was talking to Robinson today at the availability at the event at the Children's Hospital. I asked him about the Giants, and he said they haven't actually had that much communication. So I guess the Giants, they don't think he's going to be there, or they don't like him. I don't know how really to interpret that one.
Yeah, they don't. They don't expect him to be there, and it would be interesting how they liken him to Eric Flowers actually in their own discussions. But really, yeah, I wouldn't expect he would be there anyway.
All right, I got two more for you before we let you run. With the Jets, I don't really love the quarterbacks at 6 for the Jets. I saw in one of the MMQB mock drafts, Peter King, that he has the Jets trading back, and I think that would be okay if a team tries to want to move up and try to grab a QB at 6. But with the Jets, how do you see this playing out tomorrow night?
Well, I think if you get the Marshawn Lattimore, if you get him there, I think you run the card up immediately and just pick him as a corner because they desperately need that. And I think it's going to be one of the more shocking picks of this draft. Could be if they like Patrick Mahomes so much that they take him there at 6. That would be something that would shake the draft world if that would happen. It would be interesting. I don't believe for a second that Trubisky will be there at 6. I think he'll be gone before that. Somebody's going to move up to take him. Somebody's going to take him in the top 5. So if it's not Lattimore, if he's not available there, another guy that they could pick is O.J. Howard. And I think it's going to be a better pick than the Kyle Brady pick. We'll just put it that way, in the top 10. O.J. Howard is the top pass receiver of any kind in this draft. And I think no matter who their quarterback is, if you can get a guy like that, a really polished, unlike Njoku, who's got a little, more time to really get polished, Howard's there as a blocker, as a receiver, super athletic. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't count out Howard there for the Jets either.
How many QBs go in round 1?
I believe it's going to be 3. I think Mahomes. I think it goes Trubisky early, Mahomes probably between 12 and 17, and then Watson after that in the 20s.
Well, Chad, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night at the draft. We appreciate the time and have fun with this. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot for having me on.
Thanks so much. There's Chad Reuter joining us from NFL.com on the Zach Gelb Show. Fox Sports 920, the Jersey.